Hello, and thanks for joining me. We are out in the Bolognese Hills, about an hour outside of Sant'Agata Bolognese, and we begin our journey through the Lamborghini V12 timeline. And with me, I have the 400 GT 2+2, which is actually technically not the very first Lamborghini, but it's very closely related to the 350 GT, which was the first car, which came out in 1964. This came out in 1966. It was built from 66 to 68. And there are some key differences, which I'll get into shortly. But I just sort of wanted to briefly encapsulate what this car is about. So it's a front-engine V12, because Ferruccio Lamborghini originally envisioned Lamborghini as a manufacturer of GT cars, not the supercars that it's known for today. So this, as you can see, is a front-engine V12. It's got the long bonnet, the short tail, and under the bonnet, which we'll have a look at in a minute, it is a 4-liter V12, 320 horsepower. And this was actually a very advanced car for its time, because it's got a quad-cam engine, 6 Weber carburetors, it's got 5-speed synchromesh gearbox, independent suspension front and rear, disc brakes all around. And this was the era of coach building. So in the 60s, car manufacturers, Italian car manufacturers, especially the specialist ones, used to farm out the sort of the bodywork to different coach building houses. And this one was built by Touring Superleggera. So as you can see, it's very different to today's Lamborghinis, which are all sharp and angular. This is very curvaceous, very beautiful. And I think this might be an American spec car, because it's got the quad headlights, whereas I think the European spec cars had the sort of the one headlight cover. And then you have these indicator repeaters there. You have these beautiful chrome knockoff wheels, Y wheels. And I think the proportions of this car are just beautiful. So some of the key differences between the 350 GT and the 400 GT. So this is a 2+2. So there are actually seats in the back. So where the 350 GT had aluminium bodywork, this is steel. Also, the sill line is a bit lower. The shoulder line is a bit higher than the 350 GT. There's also a smaller back window. The 350 GT had a bigger back window. And I think you have to see this angle, because how good do those tailpipes look? I think they look fantastic. It's just such a stunning piece of design. And I think pictures don't really bring home how stunning this car is. But yeah, I think seeing it in the metal and driving it. So I'll give you some driving impressions in a second. And so we can move around the car. Perhaps you can get a feel for how the car looks. And Pietro, if I may trouble you, perhaps we can have a look under the bonnet. And that is, I think, one of the standout. Thank you, grazie mille. How good does that look? 6 Weber carburetors, quad cam engine. It really is a work of art, and very smooth and easy to drive, which on the whole. So why don't we hit the road now and see how it goes. So here we are. We're beginning our journey through the Lamborghini time capsule, and we are in the 400 GT. Which technically is not the very first Lamborghini, but it's closely related to the 350 GT, which was the first production Lamborghini, which came out in 1964. So yes, it's, I have to say, it's a 60-year-old car, but considering that, it's actually quite docile and user-friendly. So as you can see, I'm having to twirl the steering wheel a lot. There's no power steering, and so a lot of twirling and elbow grease required to get the thing turned through some of the tighter corners. But aside from that, it's actually quite easy to drive. The 5-speed manual is very sort of tractable, easy to use. It's got a nice sort of meaty action, very precise. Clutch effort isn't too heavy. The pedals are kind of offset to the left, so I'm kind of sitting not dead on, but you sort of get used to that. I'm too close to the steering wheel. My head is almost in line with the top of the windscreen. But as I said, once you kind of get around that, it's actually quite pleasurable to drive. The V12 is very tractable, a lot of torque, so I'm not having to kind of downshift. I'm in third gear. Maybe for this one I'll go in second because it's tight and uphill. But yes, it's I have to say this old girl is a very nice Grand Tourer, which is what Ferruccio Lamborghini envisioned for this car. And yes, next up will be in the Miura SV, which of course is a completely different, that was really the car that coined the phrase supercar, or the definition supercar. And so yes, that will be a complete contrast to this. But this has been a very nice introduction to the Lamborghini V12 lineage. And next up we will be trying the Miura.